Kevin Durant was just traded to the Houston Rockets, which means the Phoenix Suns are now back in the lottery. So in this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, I'm going to share some potential draft targets for the Phoenix Suns. Big shout out to each and every person that has made this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day, this breaking news episode. And this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code Locked On NBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. I'm your host, Rafael Barlowe. In this episode, I am flying solo. I was trying to decide, do I pre-record this episode or do I go live? But I just decided to go ahead and pre-record this episode. I plan to go live later on tonight after Game 7 of the 2025 NBA Finals. I'm looking forward to that. It'll be me, James. You never know who may join us. We'll talk about the finals, and then we'll answer whatever NBA draft-related questions you may have. All right, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, you got to subscribe. Please subscribe, like, share, comment, and click the bell so you can be notified every time we drop an episode, because the NBA draft is just 3 days away. I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it. I know I probably say this every episode, but can't wait. Can't wait. All right, let's get into it. This episode is all about the big trade of the day. I was in church. This is the second Sunday in a row I was in church. Last week on Father's Day, I was pulling up to service when I got the notification on my watch. This week, I was actually in service when I got the notification on my Apple Watch that Kevin Durant was traded to the Houston Rockets. Now, the Durant trade rumors had been going on for weeks. I saw Minnesota, I saw New York, I saw Miami, San Antonio. Then you started seeing the rumors that his preferred destinations were Miami, San Antonio, in Houston, and he didn't want to go to New York. He didn't want to go to Minnesota. What I got out of that is, hey, man, Kevin Durant maybe just doesn't want to pay state taxes. Maybe he wants to go somewhere warm. Let's put a human element in it. This guy is at the end of his career. And even though when he's at the end of his career in his late 30s is a lot different than someone who's at the end of their working career in their late 50s or 60s, but people usually prefer to go down south. People want to retire somewhere where it is warm, or they want to retire somewhere where there is no state tax. I mean, I know some people, I don't even know if this is legal or not, but I know some retired firemen at one time, a bunch of guys, they lived in another state, collectively got together to pay rent on a cheap apartment in Texas so their bills could go there because they wanted to save money on state taxes because there's no state tax in Texas. So with that being said, maybe Kevin Durant, even though he's worth $1 gazillion, just doesn't want to pay state taxes on his next contract. So anyway, with that being said, let's get right into it. Kevin Durant was traded today to the Houston Rockets for Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, the number 10 pick in this year's draft, and 5 second-round picks. The Phoenix Suns now own pick number 10 and 29. And the first thing I thought of when I heard this trade is, okay, KD goes to the Rockets because Houston could use a little bit more offensive firepower. Whatever happened wrong in Phoenix, KD was still, he was still crazy efficient. He did what Kevin Durant has been doing for like the last 15 years, or probably even more than that. I know he's a 15-time All-Star, but I thought this trade helps Houston out. It allows Houston to possibly open up some room for Reed Sheppard, the number 3 pick in the 2024 NBA draft. Maybe not, but I feel like the Rockets gave up 2 starters for 1, which opens up some playing time for somebody. But then the second thing I thought of when I heard this trade was Devin Booker, Jalen Green, and Bradley Beal. Like, I don't know if that combination is going to be even better. I think it's actually going to be worse than they were last year. But Phoenix obviously wanted to get back in the draft, and they end up with the number 10 pick in the 2025 NBA draft. And because of the poison pill restriction and the Jalen Green rookie extension, this trade cannot be finalized until July 6th. So right now it is not official, but Kevin Durant to the Houston Rockets. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens in the West next year. Actually, what happens in Texas? I live in Dallas. Dallas is looking to obviously compete for a title. You have Cooper Flag. There's going to be a lot of eyes on what happens with the Mavericks. And then San Antonio with Victor Wembanyama and healthy De'Aaron Fox, along with Stephon Castle. And then you have Dylan Harper. And then you got the Houston Rockets, who were the number 2 seed in the West this year. I think people still didn't believe in Houston, even though they were the number 2 seed. But for them to add a player of Kevin Durant's caliber is interesting. Number one, because Kevin Durant, it just kind of like goes against the timeline that we thought. We thought the Houston Rockets had a timeline of developing young guys. And then this summer, or at least with this move, and maybe because they were so good this year, the number 2 team in the West, maybe the timeline got sped up. Maybe it's because of parity in the NBA. The Rockets felt like we need to make a move now. So with that being said, I just wonder how Durant fits with the Rockets. If the Rockets feel like adding KD could put them in the championship contention. I mean, the West is going to be absolutely brutal. But again, I have no idea what the Phoenix Suns are thinking, other than they wanted a young player and they wanted another lottery pick. But Devin Booker, Jalen Green, and Bradley Beal, I don't know if that makes a lot of sense. With that being said, in the second segment, I'm going to talk about some options at point guard for the Phoenix Suns, because I think the Suns need a point guard. I thought they needed one last year, and I wanted them to take Tyler Kolek from Marquette, but they ended up going with Ryan Dunn and also Iguodala with their picks. So with the 10th pick in this year's draft, I think the Phoenix Suns desperately need to address their need for a point guard. So up next, I'm going to give some point guard options for the Phoenix Suns with the 10th pick in the 2025 NBA draft. But before we get into the second segment, let's talk about Olipop, because Olipop, it is a new kind of soda, and it is made for people who love the classic taste of soda, but want something that actually supports their health. With just 2 to 5 grams of sugar and 9 grams of prebiotic fiber in each can, Olipop is basically changing soda in a way that is better for your gut. You get a little bit older, you got to really start thinking about your gut. And traditional sodas are loaded with sugar. There's like 39 grams in regular Coke and 44 grams in Orange Fanta. And Olipop flips the script with just a fraction of the sugar and no artificial sweeteners. And it is gut-friendly. And they're gut-friendly ingredients like OliSmart, which is a blend to support digestive and overall health. And this is a soda that tastes like the real thing, but actually does something good for your body. But here's something that is special for you. If you're a Locked On listener, you can get a free can of Olipop. All you have to do is just buy any 2 cans in the store, and they will reimburse you for one. So go to drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA. Find out the nearest store that carries Olipop, and you can claim your free Olipop. Again, drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA. That is drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, second segment. The Phoenix Suns now have a logjam in the backcourt. They have Devin Booker, who is their cornerstone, their franchise guy. It is reported that he's about to get a massive extension. Devin Booker is still young. Is this his 4th contract? Like, Devin Booker might make $1 billion by the end of his career, because he entered the league very young. And it just seems like every couple years he's up for like a massive extension. And then Jalen Green got a very team-friendly extension. And then you have Bradley Beal, who looks like he's just going to be in Phoenix for a while. Bradley Beal has a no-trade clause. And there's some reports that they were trying to trade him at the trade deadline. And Beal was like, yeah, I mean, a trade may be helpful for you guys, but it doesn't benefit me to move my family. So no, I'm not going to waive my no trade clause. So Bradley Beal looks like he's going to be in Phoenix until he wants to get out of town, which means the Suns need a point guard. They need a point guard in the worst way. And they don't need a point guard who is score first. They don't need a point guard who's looking to get buckets on his own. They need a distributor. And to me, the first point guard that comes to mind as far as being a distributor and being unselfish is BYU's Egor Demin. And Egor Demin's draft range it's wide. There's some people that still think he's a lottery pick. There's some that think he could fall into the late teens and maybe early 20s. But Demin is 6'9" from BYU. He averaged 10.6 points per game, 3.9 rebounds, and 5.5 assists. In my opinion, he is the best passer in this draft. The concerns are he shot 41% from the floor, 27% from three. Had some times where he struggled a little bit with being assertive and aggressive. But if you're Devin Booker and you're Bradley Beal and you're Jalen Green, and I think Devin Booker is the best passer of those three. Bradley Beal, I thought Beal was a guy that could get you 5 assists per game. But those three guys want to score, and those three guys are at their best scoring. And a guy like Demin gives them good positional size at the point guard, but he's also unselfish. He's going to make sure those guys get their shots. I can't imagine a situation that a rookie point guard would start. I imagine they're going to try to start all three. Or maybe they tell Bill, you know what, since you don't want to help us out and you want to, you don't want to waive your no trade clause, which is totally his right. I mean, that's why he got it. You'll come off the bench and you'll be the sixth man. I've heard some people suggest that maybe moving him to the sixth man could make him upset. And if he's upset, that could be a win for Phoenix because he may want to get out of town and waive his no trade clause to go somewhere else. I don't know. Actually, let me think about it. On one hand, I feel like they may start all three of those guys and try to make it work. And then on the other hand, I'm thinking like, all right, they'll start two and maybe like Bill will come off the bench. But I don't see a situation where whoever they select at number 10, if it is a point guard, will begin the season as their starter. But Egor Demin to me is an option. Again, the best passer in the draft. And I think he could be a good fit. While I would say Demin is the best fit, there's a lot of people that would totally disagree. And they would go at Kasparas Jakucionis. Now, Jakucionis may not even be on the board at number 10. He could be picked a little bit earlier. But if Jakucionis is on the board, he could be an option for the Suns. Jakucionis brings to the table scoring, passing, and rebounding. He averaged 15 points, 5.7 rebounds per game, 4.7 assists per game. He shot 44% from the floor, and I'll round it up. I'll give him 32% from three, 84% from the foul line. At one point, I thought Jakucionis was a top 5 pick. Maybe it was recency bias. I was at a game in Eugene, Oregon, where he just dominated the game. He was in foul trouble, but in the second half of the game, he dominated just with his playmaking, his scoring, and his rebounding. There's a lot to like about Jakucionis. I do have some concerns. My concerns are, does he have the ability to turn the corner and consistently get 2 feet in the paint? And how good of a shooter is he? It seems to be overlooked that he wasn't efficient from the floor. He shot 32% from three, but he shot 84% from the foul line. So the touch is definitely there. I do believe that some of the inefficient three-point shooting numbers are directly related to the shot selection. He settled for a lot of contested step back threes. But the biggest concern outside of the foot speed is he averaged 3.7 turnovers per game. He turned the ball over a lot. I talked to a scout of a college team that coached against him, and what he mentioned was Jakucionis goes for too many home runs. If he hits some singles, then the assist numbers would probably go up and the turnovers would go down. Translation, he basically is too much of a high-risk, high-reward passer, not afraid to try to squeeze passes into tight spaces, and that leads to his turnovers. But Jakucionis could be a good balance of size, rebounding, and playmaking, which could be a pretty good option for the Phoenix Suns. It just depends on what you prefer. Do you think because Demin is bigger and the better passer that he's the better option? Or do you go Jakucionis, who's a little bit more balanced, more of a rebounder, more of a scorer? Jakucionis, despite the fact that he doesn't consistently get into the paint, He's very crafty, and he really, really understands how to get fouled. He's just such a very crafty scorer. I actually had a college coach tell me that he's Luka Doncic's light. And what makes that funny is the Phoenix Suns passed up on Luka Doncic in the 2018 draft and went with DeAndre Ayton, who doesn't even play for them anymore. But if Jakucionis is a poor man's Luka Doncic, I don't think he is the type of scorer that Luka is. But if he provides 50% of Luka, then that is an absolute win for Phoenix. So it would be kind of funny if they drafted a guy that seems like he's patterned his game a little bit after Doncic with their number 10 pick after passing on Doncic in the 2018 draft for DeAndre Ayton, who, he had some ties to the area. I think Robert Sarver's a University of Arizona alum. Ayton played for Arizona. And then at that time, you just didn't pass on a big man for an international prospect, which to me I thought was foolish. But Jakucionis is an option for the Phoenix Suns. Then if they want to go with another point guard, and depending on if you think he's a point guard or not, there's Jase Richardson. And Jase Richardson, surprisingly, did not receive an invite to the green room. Even though they said that the green room invites are done, I've seen in the past that, some guys get green room invites very late in the process. Jase Richardson did not receive an invite, and his game actually kind of complements the Suns' current roster as is. Is he a point guard? Some don't know. Some say yes, some say no. Some say he didn't really get the opportunity to play point guard at Michigan State because if he would have played the point, then Michigan State would not have been able to get the best out of Jeremy Fears. Some believe that he's a combo, but he measured at 6 foot. And to me, him measuring out at 6 foot at the combine has to have played a major role in him not getting an invite to the green room. Because if you just look at his statistics, 12 points, 3.3 rebounds, 1.9 assists, those numbers outside of the scoring, they're not going to wow you. But he shot 49% from the floor, 41% from three, 83% from the foul line. And if you go to Tankathon.com, I like Tankathon. And Tankathon.com has these stat strengths and stat weaknesses. And Jase Richardson was green. He was in the plus in every single category except rebounds. But Richardson is a guy that can play on or off the ball. You could hope that he'd be able to complement a guy like Booker. If Booker's your primary ball handler, Richardson can knock down open shots and be a smart connective passer. And if he is a legitimate point guard, then that's an even greater win. Florida's Walter Clayton could be an option. Clayton averaged 18.3 points per game, 4.2 assists, 3.7 rebounds on 44, 38, 87 shooting splits. But more importantly, he was the best player on Florida's national championship team. I don't think Clayton is an option for the Suns at number 10, but he could be an option for their pick at number 29. Again, I don't know if he's going to be there in that range. And then there's Ben Saraf. Ben Saraf actually had a really good game today. He is playing for Radio Farm. He is a 6'5". I think he's a combo guard. There's some that think he's a point guard, but Ben Saraf had a strong performance today playing for Radio Farm in the playoffs. Yes, they are still playing, but he had 20 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. It is Sunday night or Sunday afternoon while I'm recording this, and Saraf has a game around this time on Tuesday, and if they win, they will win the German League Championship in the top league. And if they lose, then he won't be at the NBA draft. But Saraf is definitely an option at number 29 for the Phoenix Suns. On the season, Saraf is averaging 12.3 points, 2.8 rebounds, 4.2 assists, while shooting 45% from the floor, 29% from three, 75% from the foul line. What I love about his game is he's just an aggressive downhill bucket. But he would provide the Suns with good positional size, good passing. But his best attribute to me is his scoring and his ability to put the ball in the basket. I don't know if that's what the Suns need from a lead guard, but he could be an option. And I think the range where the Suns are picking is about where he's expected to go. All right, another option for the Suns. Number 10 might be a little too high for most, but for me, I really think Nolan Traore is a very, very viable option for the Suns at number 10. I actually had him going to the Rockets at number 10 on my last mock. Traore is a guy that came into the season with tremendous buzz, Some thought he was a top 5 pick. I, felt like a lot of people when he got off to a rough start to the season. I dropped him. I put him outside of the lottery, but now I'm back on the Nolan Traore train. I kept my draft stock. I just had to remind myself, this is the same guy that everyone loved a year ago. Yes, things can change. However, I still think the foot speed, the passing, and the ability to consistently get 2 feet in the paint, I think that is worth the lottery pick. Does have some concerns, kind of dominant going one way and predictable. If he's going right, he's going to the rack. If he's going left, he's going to shoot a pull-up jumper. But the shooting did improve. I thought over, maybe the last 5 months of the season, he shot a respectable percentage from 3. I think he has the highest upside as far as balance with scoring and playmaking out of the point guards that I mentioned. So I think he could be a good option. Again, I had him going number 10 to the Rockets. So it's almost like he stays in the same spot. He just goes to a different team, which probably gives him a better situation. All right, up next, I'm going to talk about the bigs. Who are some of the bigs that the Suns could target with the 29th pick or maybe even the 10th pick in Wednesday's NBA draft? I got a question for you. Have you ever checked your bank account and you wondered, where in the world did all the money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's pretty easy to lose track. And that is where Monarch Money comes in. It is your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money is not just your regular budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, your investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start doing what we all need to do. I mean, some of my listeners are wealthy, but for the most of us, we need to start building wealth. And with Monarch Money, you'll get a chance to see how much money are you really spending on food delivery. You can create a budget and save more, and managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts. You can set goals and you can stay on the same page without the stress. So take control over your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com. And you got to use the code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. One of the areas that I felt like the Suns have needed to improve on just over the past few years was in the front court. They needed athleticism, they needed size, they needed depth. I just did not think that they were very athletic since the DeAndre Ayton trade. They started off with Jusuf Nurkic, who I'm a Nurkic fan. I mean, I'm a Blazers fan, so I rooted for him when he was in Portland, but he was not the answer in Phoenix, and now he is in Charlotte, and he was traded for Nick Richards. Nick Richards provided some good moments for the Suns. The Phoenix really needs help in the front court. They need rim protection, they need rebounding, and they need a switchable big, and they just really need size. Now, is there a player that provides all of that that's going to be available at number 10? I don't think so. Obviously, Khaman Maluach, well, I shouldn't say obviously, not everybody knows, but Khaman Maluach is probably going to be the first big off the board. But Leaf Tulane and I, we did a podcast episode a couple of days ago where Leaf thought that Derik Queen should be the first big off the board in his mock or his big board. But Maluach is probably the one that's going to be off the board first. I doubt if he falls to number 10. Everything that I've heard is his floor is with the Raptors at number 9. But with that being said, Derik Queen could be an option. I like Derik Queen a lot. I think he's very, very skilled. Is he going to provide the rim protection? No, but he provides skill, rebounding, passing. Defensively, there are some concerns with Derik Queen, but Derik Queen is a guy that I really like. And Derik Queen could possibly be Alperen Sengun. What if he's Alperen Sengun? I saw a comment where someone disagreed with Leaf Tulane's comparison of Derik Queen to Domantas Sabonis and Alperen Sengun, and he offered DeMarcus Cousins. I personally don't see it, but if the Phoenix Suns get DeMarcus Cousins Light or DeMarcus Cousins 2.0 and Derik Queen at number 10, consider that win. Queen averaged 16.5 points, 9 rebounds, 1.9 assists, 1.1 blocks, and 1.1 steals per game at Maryland. Shot 52% from the floor. Again, there are concerns about Queen defensively, but if you just look at the stocks, 2.2 stocks per game, not bad. But I like Queen. I like the skill. I like the passing. He is unique. Fit is going to be very important for him. I mean, fit is important for everybody, but a guy like Khaman Maluach, fit is, I'd say, less important for him. Obviously, he's going to need a point guard to really get him the ball because he's dependent on his playmakers, but he's a little bit easier to plug and play because of his size and ability to just block shots and run the floor and potential as a floor spacer. So I think Queen is probably the best option if they wanted to go to big first with the number 10 pick. But the Suns also pick at number 29, and there are a few options that could be available. Maybe Maxime Raynaud. Now, if it were up to me, Maxime Raynaud would be a lottery pick. I've been accused of being what they call me, like an industry plant, because I'm such a big believer in Maxime Raynaud's game. 20 points, 11 rebounds per game. Second in the ACC in scoring, first in rebounding. Had the second most threes in NCAA history by a 7-footer this season. Raynaud is from Stanford. I think he's very skilled, even though he is a senior. I think he's like 18 months older than Derik Queen, who just finished his freshman year. I think that Raynaud has a lot of upside. Wasn't a full-time basketball player until late in his teens because he was a swimmer. So I think that he has a lot of untapped potential. I would consider him in the range at number 10, but doesn't look like he'll go that high. Another option is maybe Asa Newell. I don't think Asa Newell is a 5. I think he's more of like a 4.5, but he could be an option. Asa Newell went to Georgia, measured at 6'10". He averaged 15.4 points, 6.9 rebounds. He shot 54% from the floor, 29% from three, which is not great, but it's promising for such a young player. And he also averaged a block and a steal per game. He would be like your energetic rim runner, dunker spot finisher. But I don't know if the fit in Phoenix makes a lot of sense because he doesn't provide a lot of size. He only has a 6'11" wingspan if you're really into like the wingspan numbers. And he averaged less blocks per game than Derik Queen, despite being a bouncy athlete. So I don't know if Queen fits. I don't know if Queen is even better than Oso Ighodaro. I think Ighodaro's a better passer, but Queen does provide more. Newell provides more upside as a floor spacer. So hopefully I said Asa Newell and not Derik Queen again. Danny Wolf is another intriguing option. I don't know if he's going to be available at 29, but he's a very skilled big, 13.2 points, 9.7 rebounds, 3.6 assists, 1.4 rebounds, and 49% from the floor is what he shot and 33% from three. Danny Wolf played last season at Michigan. Very unique player. Not too many 7-footers move, like just physically move the way he moves, and he's a phenomenal passer. I don't know if he's going to be available at 29. He received a green room invite, but if he does fall, that could be an option for the Suns. And Wolf also averaged 1.4 blocks per game. Another option for the Suns is Joan Berenguer. I don't think he'll be available at 29 also, but he could fall. He could slip. He's raw, but he is your athletic vertical lob threat, rim runner, pick and roll finisher, and he has the physical tools to switch. One of the biggest risers. Didn't come into this year with a lot of buzz as an NBA draft pick, but could see himself in the first round, maybe even middle of the first round. Again, I don't think he will be available at 29, but if so, I mean, that would be a no-brainer for the Phoenix Suns. All right, let's get to some more realistic options at 29 for the Suns. Ryan Kalkbrenner from Creighton just wrapped up a phenomenal career. He has elite physical size. He's 7'2", 7'6" wingspan, averaged 19.2 points, 8.7 rebounds per game, shot 65% from the floor, averaged 2.7 blocks. Now, if you just like visualize, or if you're just listening to what I said about Ryan Kalkbrenner, 19.2 points, 8.7 rebounds, 2.7 blocks, doesn't miss in the paint, and is the 4-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year. To me, it's like, should Ryan Kalkbrenner be a player that we should be talking about a lot higher? Is it because Kalkbrenner is a fifth-year senior? I mean, are we penalizing Kalkbrenner because he has 5 years of experience, 169 games under his belt? But if you just look at his career, man, this dude is 66% from the floor for his career. And he's the 4-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year. And he's averaged over 2 blocks a game for 4 seasons. And like I said, he doesn't miss around the rim. Kalkbrenner could be a guy that falls out of the first round, but in 5 years, he's still on the NBA roster. And if you're on the NBA roster 5 years from your draft date, that means you definitely provided first round value, because there are going to be 5 to 10 guys in the first round who end up not sticking in the league. Kalkbrenner is a guy that could stick, and maybe we're undervaluing him. So Kalkbrenner is another option. And then my favorite big man outside of Maxime Raynaud in the NBA draft, big wild card, Hansen Yang. If you remember, me and my brother James, we've been talking about Hansen Yang for a while now. We are probably the leaders of the Yang gang. And now he's starting to get some buzz. I've seen like people starting to rank him in the 30s. I've been a believer in Yang. I've had him mocked as a first rounder. If I'm the Nets, I don't leave the 2025 NBA draft without Hansen Yang. Excellent size at 7'2", 250. He's skilled, phenomenal passer, rebounds, is a guy that just has a lot of moves and touch and counter moves and skill and game around the block. He's physical. He's not afraid to drop his shoulder and cave someone's chest in. I like Hansen Yang. I think Hansen Yang can stick. I've talked to some scouts and I've talked to some people. He's caught a lot of people by surprise in his workouts and how he played at the NBA Combine. And the last thing I heard, and this was probably today, Sunday, I heard Friday that Hansen Yang could be selected in the first round. And that even if he's not selected in the first round, Hansen Yang is going to get a guaranteed contract. So that's a good sign for Hansen Yang. But if I'm Phoenix at 29, if Hansen Yang is on the board, I am definitely going with Hansen Yang. Well, that wraps up this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast. Once again, thank you for making this your first listen of the day. If you're listening on a Sunday, stay tuned later on this evening. James and I, we're going to go live after Game 7 of the NBA Finals. And whatever draft questions you may have, we are going to do our best to answer them. See you soon.